Well, welcome back to that outro of Cracks Underwater. We've wrapped up our part 2 with Kevin, and I really love this interview. I've been dying to know what Matt thought about the wheeling and dealing. That is like the thing that I'm like, and I told him you can't tell me what you think until the outro. Sometimes we have our best conversations off air, and so I'm trying to get this one on air. So Matt, wheeling and dealing, this guy's case acceptance strategy. I thought it was working. I didn't want to touch it. What did you think?
I mean, I'll give it in the outro. I have some caveats. I generally like it, though. It's not going to be a strong opinion the other way. But
is this the intro?
Yes, this is the intro.
Intro. All right. Well, this is the intro for part 2 of our interview with Kevin. And if you haven't listened to part 1, go back and listen to that. Oh wow, I totally thought this was outro. Let's just not even redo this. I like that. I like the mistake being live. So let's get into the interview. And you can see how eager I am to know what Matt thinks about the wheeling and dealing that we're going to talk about in today's episode. So this is part 2 with Kevin. I think we have a pretty good outro. This is solid. I think there's like 3 really solid things we're going to talk about. So let's jump into the interview, and then you'll see Matt and I and some wheeling and dealing conversation in the outro. Okay, we are back with part 2. Well, this is our doc, Kevin. And for those of you who didn't listen to part 1, I'll do a quick summary. But he is not a friend of the show. So Kevin does not know much about this show. And so we came on and we outlined, what this is in part 1. So if you also don't know what the show is, then go listen to last Friday's episode on part 1. And you can go back and really see, a little bit more about Practice Underwater. I kind of explained it to Kevin as we're going through it. And so I was just explaining to Kevin that part 1 is a lot of vision call where we kind of see, right? Because it's hard to get a game plan for somebody's practice without I know where they he just kind of said in the intermediate period is like point A to point B. Well, if I don't know where point B is, I know what it looks like now. I know point A, but I don't know where point B is. It's hard for me to give much strategic advice. And so we spend a lot of part 1 going through where is point B? Where do you want to go? What are the things that are really going to make a difference in your life? Because I think that's the one thing we really focus on here is it's not just about your practice. It has as much to do with your life. Your practice is a tool to make your life better. And it is not the other way around. Your life is not a tool to make your practice better. It is your life first, practice second. And so, we kind of identified some stuff with Kevin that he's going to work on that'll make his life more enjoyable in his practice. But that's not really what we're going to talk about in part 2. Now we're going to talk about, he kind of alluded to some things that he wanted in part 1, where he had kind of flirted with the idea of an associate, but I kind of shot that down, which is surprising to those of you who know me. But I did shoot down the associate idea. And he said he wants to work 3 or 4 days. Do you want 3 days? Is that like an ideal thing for you?
Yeah, I think 3 hygiene days, honestly, and then maybe a day to do some surgery or whatever else on the 4th day. But
okay, and then, so can I paint a picture for you?
Sure.
So this is sort of something that I've had in mind, where it seems like the hygiene checks burn you out a lot.
Yeah.
Because they're interrupting what if you're doing like a single unit crown on number 30 and you get called out for a hygiene check? Is that going to bother you?
Not as much.
Or is it like I'm doing a really big case and stupid hygiene keeps bothering me when I'm just trying to spend time with this patient, have this great experience for this like $30,000 case, and then they're coming in and I have to leave. It just feels bad.
Yeah, that's where I had to nip that in the bud. And one of my hygienists honestly like reads me really well to know if I even want to come in there. If the patient's okay with it, that if everyth's okay, there's nothing at all, then I'll maybe let it go, till next time. But my other hygienist doesn't listen. she's like always hovering. I'm like, oh my gosh. But no, I've tried to do those procedures at the end of the day, right? Or maybe on a different day, those bigger procedures. But I don't know. I give a lot to each patient, and even in hygiene. And so I've had to not talk as much, kind of a thing. And I don't know. I just give my all every day. And so hygiene checks kind of burn me out because I want to shoot the breeze. I want to talk. I want to, and so I spend too much time in there.
So here's what I had in mind for you. You kind of have you have 7 hygiene days right now. So you have 3 days. Is it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday where you have 2 hygienists?
Yeah, it's no, actually it's, what is it right now? It's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday that I have 2 hygienists. And Monday I have 1.
That works out very well. So Monday is always a very productive day. And so on the doctor side. So the fact that Monday is your day with one hygiene kind of works out well.
Yeah,
Now,
I like
what
that.
I want to move towards in your practice is making Mondays no doctor exams. So everything in hygiene that does not require an exam, either a 6-month recall on a healthy patient or a SRP or something like that, that you don't need to be there on Mondays. And then
I like that.
all of your big cases only on Monday.
Yeah. Okay. I like that.
Now you have kind of that thing. And so you have that thing where you can do both, right? It's not the working 4 days that burns you out. It's the hygiene checks for 4 days that burn you out.
Yeah.
So you have days where you don't do any hygiene checks, Monday. And that's the day that you schedule your how many unit veneer, your everything that you want to do where you're like, I don't want to be erupted. It's called a Monday appointment in your office.
Yeah.
Just let the front desk know, get this patient back on a Monday. And the best thing about doing those on Mondays is you have a whole week for temps to fall off and you're not running into the weekend. And so your chance of emergencies, if you were to do that on Friday, for example, then you're definitely going to be bothered Saturday, Sunday. But doing that on a Monday, you're going to catch any issue before Thursday, typically, and then you're going to get less interruptions over the weekend. So
Got it. What about the emergencies on Monday, though? Oh, you're saying there'll be less because I can catch them. I see what you're
you'll
saying.
catch them Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday as those cases, like, you put 20 temporaries on somebody. My guess is not every time it goes perfectly, and so, right, you can catch that stuff. Maybe you have to bite adjustment, something like that, but you can catch it while you're still at the office instead of having to come back to the office over the weekend to fix that patient's issue.
I like that.
So
yeah, because that
I
was
love the idea.
really the burnout. That was really the burnout is the weekend stuff. I'll be honest. That's where the burnout comes in for sure. Like the
And
weekend
what's the
can't just be
weekend
the
stuff?
weekend. Well, the weekend can't just be the weekend because if I'm there for a patient, right? So I'll go in for an emergency, or I'll go in for a photo shoot, or I'll go in for hey, I got to work on this. So there's always something, right?
So are you opposed to the idea of having somebody else answer the emergency line?
To like screen the stuff, yeah. I am right now. Right
You are
now, for
opposed to
where
that
I'm at,
idea.
I think I'll transition into not being me eventually. But I think right now, while I'm building my brand and still getting to know my patients, I want to be there for them. So
Okay.
yeah.
All right. I would love to push back on you more on that, but I'm just going to leave it. You
Okay.
do that, but just eventually, that would be a nice thing to delegate.
Yeah, for sure.
It would definitely free up your time. So, but if we can move your practice to, and then what's going to happen is you're going to have all these high value spots that are going to start filling up. So you're going to potentially be booking out a while for these cases potentially. And then you just know, right? Maybe you have some criteria with your staff. Maybe you're the buck always stops with you where this is a Monday patient, maybe 4 crowns or something, posterior crowns. Hey, that's a Monday case. Let's just knock them all out at once. And then
I like that.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, those are your days to diagnose. So you go to the office and you're thinking in my head, I'm diagnosing while doing simple dentistry. I am not thinking about the dentistry I'm doing. The interruptions are welcome because that's my opportunity to fill my schedule.
I like that.
And then you're looking at this. Is this a case where I want to be uninterrupted? Monday. If it's a case where I'm good being interrupted and it's a single unit crown number 30 and I don't mind the hygiene check, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That's your call. But you kind of already have this built-in one hygiene day. So let's not waste the hygiene day with adding another hygienist, for example, or doing something like that. You diagnose plenty. I mean, you diagnose very well. Looking at your numbers, that is one of the things that I noticed about you. So let's make you more efficient and then your procedure times can be cut when you're not leaving the room.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. For sure.
Okay.
For sure.
So we're going to work on making Mondays mega doctor days where you just do all your big case stuff. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you don't mind the hygiene checks because those are your days to diagnose.
Okay. I like it.
Okay. Now, do you have openings in hygiene?
Yes.
You do. Okay.
Yeah.
You also have
it's always been
half of your patients that are overdue.
Yeah.
So you have openings in hygiene not because you need to work on your marketing. You have openings in hygiene because you have patients who are established at your practice that are chilling.
Right. Or maybe have left. I
And,
don't know.
usually people don't. So if somebody hasn't been into your practice for 7 months, they're not going to go find the new dentist if they want a cleaning. They're probably going to come back to your practice.
Right.
They just
Right.
haven't had their cleaning in like a year.
Yeah. And some of that number is maybe a tiny bit inflated because of COVID, maybe.
Definitely inflated for COVID. But I kind of know, I know these numbers well enough to know where they should be. So my practice right now is down because of COVID as well.
Yeah.
But your practice is, I mean, if we're not counting COVID, 44% of your patients are, so including COVID, 44% of your patients are current on recare.
Are
That
these
should
technically
be,
active patients?
yeah, they've been to your practice last year and a half.
Okay, they've been
Yeah,
in
you've
the last
met them
year
all.
and a half. Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
So you've met all these patients, and 44% of them are current on their cleaning. The rest are not. So that second front desk that you hire,
Mm-hmm.
the number one objective on their schedule should be to fill hygiene openings.
Okay. Yeah.
Like that is their job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The most important thing that they do is filling hygiene openings. And
Yeah,
right,
so
and they're not filling hygiene openings.
The second person that
Go
I
ahead.
laid off, what she was doing was insurance. So she was an
Okay.
insurance specialist. And
So then your person that you're retaining is, do they do insurance?
they can. It's not their specialty. She kind of does it all because she kind of ran the show by herself for a while. But she's
So
not
what does she
PPO
do
savvy.
well?
Yeah, what does she do well? That's a great question. So she actually is awesome at those relationships and being the face of the front and greeting patients and being in their lives, and she's good at juggling lots of hats at once. You know, she's great at over the phone, right? And just kind of customer service, I'd say, is her number
Okay.
one.
So she is your hygiene filler.
Yes, that's the problem. Is she's customer service
so
oriented, but she's not like because she came from an office where the doctor was always writing her about the schedule and they were always so slow. And so she like pushes that side of it away, I feel like she's not busy filling the schedule. And I've always felt, and I'm glad we're addressing this because I've always felt like who's gonna fill the schedule? Who's gonna fill the schedule? Honestly, I'm filling the schedule from Instagram. Literally. That's how I'm filling the schedule. Like I remote in after talking to someone on Instagram, and I put them on the schedule, and then I screenshot their info, and I say, "Hey, I say like put this person in the schedule." So I'm like stressing about that on the weekends, like filling my books with my friends because I feel like no one's really calling the patients. Like I have people with outstanding treatment that just chill.
Yeah, and the outstanding show, I've measured this.
Mm-hmm.
The outstanding treatment calls, the success on them is not the best.
Not great,
Right? You can do well at them, and they have some value if done right at the right times and stuff. But if patients walk out without scheduling, unless it's a big case, then the chances of getting them back in is hard. So I would much rather have the time, and if we're going to have her calling anybody, I really want it to be to fill hygiene openings, because that does two things. It gives you immediate revenue through the cleaning, exam, x-rays stuff. Yes. And then the other thing it would do is it gives you the opportunity to diagnose more. So you get more at bats. And so for me, then you need to hire. So this is what you need to have. You need to have the conversation with your front desk currently and say, we're going to hire somebody. One thing I really want you to start doing that you're currently not doing is focusing on filling the hygiene schedule with our overdue recare patients. I want that to be something you're always working on. So what do we have to offload from your schedule? Maybe it's the PPO stuff that you're currently doing, since you don't really know what that is. I noticed your anyway, we won't get into that, but I noticed your production collections difference is large, like really large.
Yeah.
And so I think maybe an insurance person kind of in the background would be good for your office.
Oh, like remote or something like that?
No, like a more quiet, usually the mathematical front desk insurance people tend to be a little bit more introverted. So what I say in the background, I mean, that's your problem?
Well, that was my problem with the other girl, right? Because she was doing insurance and she was really good at it. Okay.
Okay.
But she offended patients. She,
Offended patients. How?
oh yeah, on the phone, she was rude, kind of rude, kind of just not nice, because they were used to my other one who's super nice. And so then when she started taking over some of her duties, answering calls or greeting patients or walking them out and stuff like that, like she'd sit up at the front and she'd kind of do her thing, but she was just amazing at insurance. I felt like, but now we're kind of uncovering some things where maybe she's just lazy. She was a little lazy. So, but I do feel like if I need somebody who maybe knows insurance and is going to focus on like collecting money.
Yeah. So
So,
typically in a front desk, there are a two front desk office. There are two
mhm,
positions. There's a scheduling coordinator who's typically greets patients when they walk in. The more customer
yeah,
service answers the phones. They are more frontline patient flow person, and
yeah,
then they are the ones filling the schedule. And then there's a second person who's the financial coordinator, who is the
yeah,
one that will outline treatment plan presentations with patients. They will
yeah,
go through financial arrangements with them. They deal with insurance. They collect money. So you have two
uh-huh,
people. They both need to be nice and personable
yeah,
with patients, but
right,
the difference is they don't need that extra spurt of energy. The really energetic person doesn't have to be that treatment coordinator insurance type.
right,
Typically somebody who is that detailed and good with those numbers isn't that type of person anyway. But they need to be
right,
they need to have some level of, patient communication skills,
yeah,
but they just don't need
yeah,
to be the flamboyantly awesome front desk that you already have.
that makes
Does that
sense.
make sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
uh-huh,
you need a second role there,
I do.
and then talk to your front desk, because when you tell her, "Hey, front desk, love you, but I want you to do all these new phone calls to all these patients," she's going to flip and say, "I don't have any time for that." So
Right,
you pre-position it as this hire. We are doing it so that you can have time for that.
yeah,
And then
okay,
it's you and her are making an agreement. What do I have to take off your plate and give to new person so
mm,
that you can make phone calls?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Got it. No, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like we successfully did that with this second front desk that we had for a while, and it did make things a lot easier on everybody. But then, it just wasn't the right person. So,
Yeah.
but
And that's fine. You'll get another one.
we can see how that's the right fit. Yeah.
And you have your clearly defined roles, right? It's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
Normally the one that stays in the practice is the insurance person. So I just kind of assumed that the one that was staying was the insurance person. But this is an unusual situation where it's not. So you're
Right.
hiring the insurance person. But anyway, so you get somebody
Yeah.
in there, the financial coordinator, to really address these issues, and then you give them the thing with the front is you have to have specialists. You cannot have people that do the same thing. Who answers
Mm,
the phone? Scheduling coordinator. Who fills hygiene? Scheduling coordinator. Who submits claims? Financial coordinator. Who presents treatment plans? Nobody can be doing the same thing, because then
okay.
you can't hold anybody accountable. If you
Right.
go and you see hygiene schedule has 3 openings, you can go up to somebody and say, "WTF? What's going on?" But you
Yeah.
can't do that if it's
Right.
everyone's job. Well, now it's nobody's fault. So
Right.
you need to clearly, delineate who does what.
Yeah.
And this is your opportunity now that you're hiring to sit down with your current front desk and say, "What is everything you do? What can I take off? What can I add?" And the only thing we're adding is filling hygiene openings. And then we're going to take stuff off. And then now you have a list of her jobs that you can hold her accountable for. And then you give new front desk. "Hi, you're hired. Welcome to Kevin Dental. These are all of your jobs." And you give them the list of
Okay.
papers. And
Got it.
now you have systems, right? That's like the
Yeah.
very basic. Like, I'm not going to call myself a front desk expert by giving you that piece of advice, but I'm saying
Right.
like that's the entry level system in place, is who does what.
Yeah. That's good.
That's where you want to start.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And we've made attempts at this, but it is hard. It's hard to do. I think part of it is I haven't taken ownership of it. So
Yeah.
I basically delegated what you just said to my current front desk when I was going to hire a new person. And so she did. She said she wrote down everything she does. This is everything you're going to do. And so she basically had it in place. But then, now everything's in shambles. But so I think we
Can
do
I
have a vision of that. But she's the one who made it up, right? So her life's too easy. I'm not holding her accountable. I'm kind of like, hey, you run the front, but then I'm seeing all these problems. It's like, I'm not the owner of the front. I feel like I'm the owner of the back, and she's running the
Yeah.
front. So that's the
You're the
problem.
owner of the whole thing.
I know.
And you
But
know what's funny?
I
Can I make fun of you for a second?
that's fine. Yeah.
So we were talking about the emergency calls. You're like, I can't delegate that. I got to handle that myself. And
Yeah.
then we're like, being in charge of the front desk, I'd pass that off. Like, that's not my job, and it's funny because on the value order of the, like, using your time effectively as an owner for high value functions, sitting down with your front
Yeah.
desk team and organizing who does what is one of the most valuable uses of your time that you could possibly do. And
I know.
you've, like, you're scheduling patients off Instagram. Like, that's a super low
Yeah.
value use of your time. That's like spending a lot of time on one appointment. And
Yeah.
so
I do
it's
that.
yeah, so when you try to pass off things
Mhm.
that don't pass off high value stuff,
Mhm.
pass off the
Mhm.
low value stuff.
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
and
That's
try
a good
to, and I'm
idea.
not saying emergency calls, but I'm saying make a list of all the stuff that you do in a
Mhm.
day and ask yourself, is this something that somebody else could do?
Mhm.
And start passing off that stuff, and then keeping the stuff that you should be doing, like sitting down
Yeah.
with your front desk and really working on organizing things up there.
I like that. That's good. Good advice.
All right. So I'm looking at it, and one other thing that I'm seeing is, so we talked about this kind of already. We have this large pool of people that are currently, this is, I love this. Hold on. I love this. So the fact that you don't come on our show means I get
Mhm.
to notice things about your practice that most people that come on the show have been listening to the show. We started Practice Underwater in August. So it's
Okay.
like, what, 8 months old or something? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at this point, people have had time to know the stuff that we normally talk about, and they have time to fix their practice, and then they kind of
Mhm.
come on the show, and it's like, okay, well, you're doing these things well, like, congrats. And then we're kind of reaching a little bit. You don't know our show, you don't listen to our show. And so when I ask you, right, how did these patients become overdue on their recare? Like,
Mhm.
let's postulate that for a second. How does that happen?
Mhm. I think it happens from snowbirds, seasonality. So they might get their second cleaning in another state. I think another part of it is because our reschedule rate in hygiene,
Hmm.
last time I checked, is pretty good.
What was
I
it?
think it I think it's up over 90%. I want to
Where do you
say.
get that number from?
I just made it up, man. I feel like I feel like I have heard that. I feel like I found that, and I think I got the number from. We did like a dental intel one time.
Okay.
We did basically just a little snapshot dental intel, and that's where it was. It was our hygiene reschedule rate wasn't too bad, is what I remember, right? So that's just kind of in my head, and I do hear them. They make a great effort about rescheduling, but sometimes the verbiage I hear is not right. So they'll just say, "Hey, would you like to schedule?" Instead of just being like, "Hey, okay, 6 months from now or July, let's get you on the books for mid-July," and let them like interject and say no, rather than, and not being pushy, but basically like, "Hey, look,
Yeah.
we're gonna get you scheduled now," instead of being like, "Hey, would you like to schedule? Would you want to call back?" It's like, no, let's get them scheduled.
Yeah. So
So
you do a decent job of that. So you're in the 80s.
yeah, okay, okay. Did you get
It's
that off
not bad.
metrics? Okay,
I mean, I have your practice by numbers. So you said a dental intel
okay,
snapshot. So
yeah.
I had you use practice by numbers. It's a much better company.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
And so they have, so I'm looking at all your metrics right here. And so
Oh,
that's
okay,
how I
got it.
know that
Yeah,
44% of your patients are current on the recare. You
got it.
guys,
Okay.
81% of your patients got their next appointment in hygiene. So I can kind of see that
81 or
stuff.
88? What's it at? 81?
81.
Oh, 81. Okay, so it's not as good as I thought, but
No.
yeah,
So that was the thing I was going to talk about, but you kind of already knew
yeah.
it, so you spoiled it. But I was going to
Sorry.
say the whole, yeah. So that to me is an area that you've probably worked on a
Yeah,
bit with them,
right.
but since you've taken over, but there's still that, recurring. Once you tighten that up and you start bringing those patients in from your hygiene pool, then you'll be able to be full. And I don't think you're not as new patient dependent as you think you are. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
Your practice has enough patients in here right now for your area that you don't need a whole lot of new patients to keep going the way you just need to bring your patients in. I mean, half your patients
bring them in
are
and
not,
retain them once they're there.
yeah, bring them in and retain them. That's the bulk of your practice. And then you do some cosmetic sprinkle marketing on there, sure. But it seems like you're already getting those cases. So I wouldn't even mess with the marketing that you're doing. I would just focus on tightening up your hygiene system. And then your Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays will be more busy with bread and butter. And then your Mondays will be, I think your Mondays are going to fill up. I really do. You seem like a guy that does a lot of bigger cases on people, and you just have that motor, and you know it when you see it. And I'm not one of those guys. My Monday would be like a day off, or I would golf on Monday if I had that requirement of big cases on Mondays. Because patients come into my office and they want, like, I had this patient who wanted cosmetic treatment, and I talked her out of it. Like, that's how I do it. I'm like, you don't really need it. Like, your teeth look fine. Like, you're good. Like, move on with your life. That's how I handle cosmetic consults. And
That's
so, like, you're one of those guys that's like, hey, have you thought about fixing your smile? You're bringing that up. And I've never once told that to a patient. Unless they bring it up, I'm not even having the conversation.
Well, there is kind of that code though with cosmetic dentist. A lot of us, we aren't bringing it up to the patients unless they ask. But the thing is, you have to make it known that you are a cosmetic dentist, and then they'll ask you. But you don't go to someone and be like, "Hey, your teeth are jacked up," But you can say, like, you just let them know that of your work, but don't address it specifically, like, because everyone's at a different level with like what they like with their smile.
Yeah, and you don't want to offend anybody.
No.
But for me, I just don't do that well. Your Mondays are going to fill up, and your Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, if we can keep them productive too, then you have 3 days where you're like a bread and butter GP, and then you have 1 day where you're like your cosmetic dentist, and then the weekends you're really going to be looking forward to Monday.
Yeah, okay.
That's what's going to happen.
I like that.
You're going to love
it. That. Cool.
So, I think you have a lot of work to do on the front of, and I'm so impressed with your treatment planning. I got to say, it's not very often I see. So,
what are you impressed about it?
The total amount you diagnose. So in February, you as a solo dentist diagnosed, I think 371 was the number I saw, if I remember correctly.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So in my practice with 2 dentists, 4 hygienists, we diagnose up in the 300s now, high 300s, but that's twice as many patients being seen by 2 dentists in our office. And you have all the, like, for me, the fact that you're not doing 1 million, or you are barely doing 1 million, like, you should be doing a 1.3 pretty easily with how much you diagnose. So I really think it's tightening up. Yeah.
The reason why the production numbers are inflated and the diagnosis is inflated is I wheel and deal. I wheel and deal to get people to say yes. So I give, if you look at my adjustments, I don't know if you can see that.
That's what I was wondering. What's with the adjustments, man?
Yeah, that is me to a T. That's got to change. And I've been trying to change it. But man, it's hard. It's hard. I devalue what I do when I do that, but I came from the DSO. I was wheeling and dealing every single day. Cash deals. It's all about the immediate cash. All about the immediate cash. Don't let them walk out the door, right? You said that yourself. Don't walk them out the door. Don't let them walk out the door. Yeah. So I feel like where other practices let people walk out the door, I don't. They have to say yes. And I don't care if I'm having them $200 down and a payment plan in-house for 10 months that my front desk has to follow up on monthly. Like, I just say yes to everybody. And it just, it's making my life difficult and my team's. And so there's actually a don't talk money jar at my office. So when I talk money, they put cash in there, and then and then it's for them,
Oh, so that's awesome.
I've been trying to stop it. But it's tough because a lot of my patients are friends, or I'm finding them on Instagram. Yeah.
Pre-COVID, how far booked out are you on the doctor side?
Oh, pre-COVID? I always had space. I'll be honest. I always had space. I always wanted it. My goal was to get booked out 2 weeks. That was always my goal, but we never made it happen. I mean, I felt like I always had room for people. I'm pretty efficient, right? So I get them in and out.
Yeah.
I don't drag on these appointments. So I don't
So
know.
right, we talked about it. You have a lot of hygiene openings. That has as much to do with your doctor side as anything else, right?
Yeah.
If we can fill your hygiene openings, then let's just say we get 20% more patients in hygiene than are currently being seen without hiring an extra staff member, then you have 20% more procedures to do on your side.
Yeah. Right.
So that is ultimately right. So the wheeling and dealing, I kind of don't mind it, to be honest. It doesn't bother me a whole lot. It's charming.
I thought you were gonna rip me on that.
No, right? You have openings in your schedule. I think
that's
so.
what
It's
I'm
funny.
saying.
Matt, my
I do it.
partner, he's listening to this right now, and we're gonna do an intro outro before this gets aired, and he is gonna rip me for this in the outro because he is big on valuing what you do and not discounting. He also does some deals with cash patients, so I don't know where he's going to stand on this one. It'll be interesting to see. But
what I did do recently is I inflated my fees. I changed my fees.
I noticed in November, right?
Yeah, so I upped my fees so that when I do a deal, I can still make a good profit and not like give someone a deal and so they feel like, oh, he's taking care of me, but then at the same time don't devalue too much what I'm doing. That's kind of the fine line I'm trying to figure out and walk that.
I'm kind of happy with where you're at with this. I'm not right, because if we tell you don't devalue what you do, go in there, diagnose, and just leave, we're taking away one of your biggest strengths, which is your ability to close treatment with the patient.
I can close it. My team will tell you too. Like they won't get the patient to say yes, and then I'll come in and or the patient will be upset and they'll be trying to handle it, and then I come in and then so I'm kind of a talker.
So let's look at February, right? February, you presented 371,000 and you had accepted 72 grand. So patients said yes to $72,000 of doctor side treatment. So that is the recipe for $1 million practice, right? Because that's not even throwing hygiene on top of it. If you're doing $72,000 of doctor production a month, then your problem is not more doctor production. That's your strength. You're walking around and you're wringing the towel well. The problem is you don't have enough water in the towel to wring because you don't have enough patients in hygiene.
Right.
That's your problem. Okay. So I'm happy with your treatment acceptance game. I don't want to touch that. I actually think that's a strength of yours. Okay. And that talks about the value of metrics and coaching, where I already know your strengths and weaknesses before we even talk.
Yeah.
Diagnosis, treatment planning, case acceptance is a strength. You do it your own funky way. Kevin wheels and deals. Cool. I don't care what you do. It works. Yeah. Okay. So I'm not going to touch it. Right. Yeah. I don't want you to do it my doctored way or whatever, like the way that they teach you in the practice management institutes, because you don't need it, man. That's a strength right now. And you're not trying to build 500 offices where everything is done the same way. Like you just have one practice. You can do it your own way. Yeah. And this is just your own funky way of doing it. It works. Who cares? Yeah. Keep doing it.
Cool. I like that.
So but like, again, right? Hygiene is your biggest thing. Your practice goes as hygiene goes. I want that to be number one objective from this call is front desk organization to fill hygiene.
Okay.
That is your everything else I tell you after that. And then the Monday thing is a lifestyle thing, but let's keep it simple for you, man. I don't want to because you're the competitive guy. I could give you 10 things to do and 10 of them are going to get done. I want you to focus on doing 2 things.
Okay.
Fill hygiene openings through front desk organization and have your front desk clearly outline what they want, what each person is doing, and make sure they're doing those things. 2, Mondays, no more doctor exams. Not Monday, like when you go back in. Obviously, the schedule's not set up that way. But just tell your staff, I want SRPs and 6-month recalls and patients that don't have a whole lot of caries risk. I want those on Mondays. And then now right? It'll take a few months for that to come into effect because hygiene's great like that because it books out. But I want you to know that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, those are diagnosis days. You go into the office, you are there to diagnose. Monday is your production day where you get to be the detail oriented. He doesn't want to be bothered in the laboratory dentist, and nobody's going to bother you. And so if there's a
Yeah, that's
case
cool.
and you're thinking, am I going to be annoyed when I get called out? Then you put that on Monday.
Okay.
Right. And it's like a number 12 DO. Like you should not be annoyed being called out for that.
No.
Like
No.
that is life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's the 15 unit case of the patient paying a lot of money where that's where you don't want to be called out because it bothers you because you're devaluing the experience and you're just going to check a quick hygiene exam. Like this isn't worth it. You know, you're going through all the stuff. You're getting burnt out. That's Monday case. Monday.
Okay.
And look, the patient's going to take time off work for those cases anyway. So it's not like they're going to be like, oh, I'm just going to go get 15 crowns right before work. Like that's not happening. They're taking the day off, you know?
Right.
So they don't mind the day of the week. It's not as big of a deal to that patient. Or like maybe endo, you don't want to be bothered during endo, then put that on Monday. You know, just have the stuff that make a list of implants, you know, maybe a difficult extraction, whatever you want to do where you don't want to be bothered. That's your Monday. Okay. And then they can sprinkle in other stuff too, right? If it's not going to fill up entirely with that, but prioritize that stuff.
Right. Okay.
And then your mindset shift has to be Tuesday through Thursday. You're not going there to do dentistry. You're going there to diagnose while you do dentistry. So the hygiene exam shouldn't bother you.
Okay.
Let's keep it simple.
Yeah. I mean, obviously there's going to be some wiggle room there. Like if a patient wants.
Yeah. And 80-20 rule, right?
Yeah.
80-20 rule, saying 80% of the time we're going to follow this stuff. 20% of the time we're not. And that's, you know, it's going to take not that much effort to make it, you know, 80% of our cases are, you know, following those rules. And then you're okay with the flex. But for the most part, like, let's just keep it simple, man. That's going to, like, you do that, what I just told you. I mean, I will bet you $1,000. If you do that for 12 months, you're doing over 1.2 without even thinking.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not kidding. Like, it's not hard. It just, so then let's go back to what we were talking about in part one. Like, let's stop making it hard. Like, this isn't rocket science. We don't need to be thinking about it all the time. Like, this is a brick and mortar business that is like, banks view dentists as the second safest investment after veterinarians. So, like, this isn't hard. You're going to be fine. Don't overthink it. Just do those very basic things.
Okay.
And you'll be good. And then the rest, focus on that stuff that you have going on that's making it hard on you.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry, I'm taking notes.
No, that's fine. How do you feel in general?
I feel great. Yeah, I really do feel great. No, this is fun. And these things, I like that you're keeping it simple for me, because I got a list. All right. I write things down. I got a list of 100 things that I want to do in my office tomorrow.
Yeah. Right? Don't matter.
So, yeah.
I
got to focus on the big stuff.
Yeah. And that's so when we talk about, Kevin, just to tell you a little bit about more what we do, we have, so this show, right? What do we like? We're probably, you know, so our mutual friend told you that I do consulting. I don't love the word consulting. I call it coaching because it's a lot more about, you know, a coach is a much more psychological position than a consultant, right? Like, a coach, you're looking at their life, you're looking at everything, you're keeping their business and life in mind. But what the metrics really offer us is the ability to focus on, in your practice, let's keep it simple. Let's just do these few things at once, and then we go from there. And that's what the metrics give us that we wouldn't have otherwise. Because your list of 100 things, I'm sure that they could or should be done, and they probably help a little bit. But none of those things are going to impact your practice the same way filling hygiene openings will in your practice. So just focusing on one thing gives you a lot of relief, and just don't worry about the rest. Just relax. Don't worry about the rest, and you'll be fine.
Okay. I won't relax, but okay.
I mean, don't relax somewhere else. Like, pick up a hobby. You know, you're like an ultra competitive guy. Golf. You know, like, do something. You know.
I know.
don't put it in your practice, man. It doesn't belong there.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. Do you have any other questions for me before we wrap up?
Are you a big believer in blocking out time on your schedule for the procedures you want to do? So like each and every day have, okay, I'm going to have a rock appointment in the morning. I'm going to have a rock appointment in the afternoon. I'm going to have water here. To me, it's just like, I don't know. I'm like toying with the idea of like doing that on those other days. So that would be like my Tuesday through Thursday, like have those times like pre-blocked out. But then it's almost like I'm a yes man, right? And I want to say yes to the patient right then and there. And I do a lot of same day treatment, and my day it never goes as planned, right? So I'm like, are you a big fan of that type of scheduling?
I like same day treatment more than I like rock, water, sand.
Okay.
Same day treatment is the best ever. So if
Yeah,
you're doing
I
that,
agree.
why would I take away a great strength in your practice to put in this weird system that doesn't make, no, I'm good. Is it right?
Yeah.
But let's go back to, again, like, look, like we're going to exit this call. Look what just happened.
Mm-hmm.
I told you, don't do anything else until those
Yeah,
three
yeah,
things get done. And you're like, well, maybe we could do rock, sand, water on Tuesday, Thursday. Just don't even think about anything else, man.
Okay,
like,
all right.
Drop everything else. Just do the
cool.
list.
Okay, I can do that.
Right? Who cares? Like, so I read this book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F, and I loved it. It was so cool. And I want you to go into the practice with the mentality of anything that is not on that list.
We're good. Sorry.
Anything that is not on that list that I gave you, you don't care about it.
Okay.
It can wait.
Okay.
It can wait until you get that list done.
Got
right?
it.
So if you're like, I want to buy this, I want to do any idea in the practice, just imagine me saying, stop. You can't care about that until you do the things I gave you to do. All right. Sort out the anxiety, whatever we want to call it, going on.
Yeah.
Get your hygiene openings filled. And what was the other one? I forgot. You got it, your list. Yeah. Just do those things.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
All right. Sounds good, brother. Thank you.
All right. You're very welcome. Nice talking to you.
Yeah. Thanks a ton.
All right. This time it is the outro. Apparently I was so excited for this outro that I've thought it's happened 3 times now. So now is the time, I believe. If this is airing after the episode, then I was right. And so Matt, wheeling and dealing, please. I'm the edge of my seat now. Tell me what you think. That was one of those moments that I was like, it's like I don't know what mom's gonna think about me doing this. You have like that like growing up thing, and this was like, I don't know what Matt. This is his area, and I'm sort of stepping on it. I don't know what he's gonna say, but I felt like it wasn't broken. I didn't want to touch it, and I don't know what else to say about it. Like I just felt it's working. I don't want to touch it.
No, I mean I'm basically with your instincts there. I think wheeling and dealing is good, with the caveat: big cases only. Like, do not wheel and deal your single crowns, even like
it seems
2
like
crowns.
he was wheeling and dealing single crowns.
Yeah, that's where you can fall into it. Like, I wheel and deal $20,000 cases, or like over 10. Like, that's when I'll be like, all right, pay up front, get a nice discount, or hey, we'll knock off, $1,000 here, a couple $1,000 here, or if it's something that like I really want to do.
This conversation's for all the insurance commissioners out there. This one's for you.
This one's for you. Oh, great! I'm gonna get a letter now in my office. Oh, God.
This is anonymous host.
Just for the anonymous host. Matilda. No. Yeah. No, so I see it there. Big case, right? You want patients to
do you have a dollar amount that you'll like over 6, 7, 8, 9,
over 10, I would say.
Over 10.
Yeah.
Cool.
Because right, you're already making a lot of profit. Like what's a couple $1,000 here or there? Like, not a big deal.
Yeah, no, it's important that you get the case done. I agree with you. I think I looked at it more from the perspective of his case acceptance was high. And so I didn't want to touch that process. And I think that wheeling and dealing quality about him is something that I feel like he's kind of good at it. I don't know. I didn't want to touch it, but I also agree with you. Like single units and like a filling, like you really shouldn't be doing that. Like that's just draining your energy and time.
And I love the money jar. When Dr. Kevin talks about money, they put money in the jar. In a future interview with Albert, we'll talk about how I told him, do not talk money ever again. Because some people just like put their foot in their mouth with money. And before we can like learn how to skillfully talk about money with patients, we just gotta stop. Like,
Yeah, I feel like you talk about money with patients.
yeah, I will. But like if there's a client or someone on one of these interviews that is just really messing it up, I would just rather have them stop. Like, you're better off not doing it than really. And like kind of for Kevin, right? He's like discounting things, and so his staff did a funny little thing of put money in every time Kevin talks money. That's a great way to do it. I love that.
Yeah, I think that's hilarious.
Yeah.
And I wanted to. So, do you not talk money about small stuff? But if you're going to wheel and deal, you start talking money. Is that kind of your distinction?
Yeah, I don't usually talk money like single, small things like you said. But yeah,
Like under 10K, you're not talking money. Over 10K, I mean, I agree with that logic. I don't talk money about a single unit crown. But if I'm doing like a, we call them Toyotas in my practice, like overdentures, so, yeah, I mean, the patient needs to know it's about 10 grand an arch. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like that number is like, they're going to find that out in 3 minutes. Like, I think we just need to see if that's feasible and like, treatment plan options, right? Like, I think in bigger cases, you have to at some point address ballpark figures.
Yeah, and I
Like,
think
I'm not
like
giving them cents, but like I'm giving them a ballpark.
yeah, and like if you're even talking smaller amount of dollars, like if you know with certainty that that's the dollar, then do it. But like a lot of these are insurances, and you don't really know, and you don't want to give a patient a number that's lower than what it actually is. Like that's the biggest thing you cannot do. So if you're estimating on the high end, but yeah, I think it's just cleaner if you keep the big cases in your end and have a trusted staff.
I like that. Yeah, because I had a buddy who became a patient, and I quoted a fee. I'm like, hey, dude, it's just gonna be this much, and then like it ended up being more. And then he was like, "Well, you said it'd be like," and I was like, "It's my friend," so I kind of was like doing something I normally wouldn't do. But like, yeah, I see it now, and I could see how if he did that with, that would be a mess. Yeah,
Yeah,
for
you
sure.
don't want to be the one having to clean that up.
Yeah, no thanks.
But other things I had here. Do you have any more thoughts on that? That's kind of my.
No, I liked. I was, I was in the middle of the. I think I even did. I say it in the interview. I said like, I wonder what Matt would think about this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was very cognizant of my mind. Was like, what is Matt going to think about me telling this guy to wheel and deal? I don't know. But I kind of liked it.
Oh, here's one area that kind of piqued my interest. We'll say. He talked about something weird with cosmetics. How like there's a code in cosmetic dentistry where you're not supposed to bring it up until they ask. Is that a real thing? Did I mishear that?
Oh, I think you're saying like you don't mention cosmetics. Yeah.
What?
No, I think I think Justin both taught us, you're like, you could look really like, you look great, but like you could look even better, like that type of thing.
Yeah.
And I say that to patients, I mean, not all the time, not like creepy, but like, yeah, I mean, I definitely have like your teeth, I do it with Invisalign a lot where, I'm like, you have healthy teeth. The only thing I would mention is that, crowding, shifting, and, you'd be a great candidate to have like a really great result with Invisalign. So I'll say something like that, but I'm definitely bringing up. I don't bring up veneers and like anterior, aesthetic work. I think I've talked about that enough on the show to not get in that again. But I will do that with Invisalign. I believe in that product a lot.
Yeah, like I'm not a big cosmetic guy, so I don't go into it a lot. But that's his passion, right? So like,
yeah,
he's not bringing it up, even though he loves doing it. He can like literally change these people's lives. Like. It's just weird how he phrased it. Like I don't know, he didn't want to feel pushy or something. But I don't know.
I think the cosmetic dentists, like they really believe in the impact that work has on their patients. Like if you feel that strongly about it, like then yeah, I would shout it from the rooftops. Be like, hey, you would be just over the moon about what I could do to your smile. Like
and he wanted the people to find out like organically that he did it through I don't know, some marketing, I guess. I thought that was weird. I don't know. I think he could change that up.
Yeah, I think there's in general in his practice more opportunity in his recal department than he acknowledges. I think he's very marketing, new patient oriented.
So the whole issue of like why isn't he doing more production? Do you think that's purely from the write-offs adjustments that he's going through?
So he bought this is tough because he bought a practice that if I talked about, it would ruin a lot of the stuff. So he bought a very high performing practice in the cosmetic department. And so the fact that he was even able to close to maintain what they were doing under new ownership, I actually view as pretty impressive. So I'm not going to knock him for not maintaining or growing the practice. He bought as a pre-owner, I would never buy this practice that he bought 100%. And I kind of told him that at dinner, but the fact that he did, he's doing okay. But yeah, I would have not have not have bought that practice.
No.
So
that's good to know, and it makes it even more impressive what he's kept.
Yeah, and so that's why I was like, hey, you know what? Like that's not bad. But then when we talked to it, I'm like, oh, got it. Yeah, yeah, okay, got it. Makes more sense. I won't share anymore. But yeah, I think I won't chalk that up to anything other than buying a very overproducing practice.
You're great at walking that line of anonymity. Like you got that down to a science.
Am I? Did I actually do a good job? Or are you being sarcastic?
No, I'm being serious.
Okay, yeah. No, I don't want to, right? Because people come on the show and they're vulnerable with us, and they, we air their numbers out, and I want to make sure that we are being respectful of that. I think one thing so this actually came up on Facebook today. So I made a post today, and so if this is airing, you know how long ago today was. I made a post about some of the favorite things from practice underwater that people have enjoyed, and I think one of the things was I don't like cross training, and this episode outlines why. And, I think Wayne, I know you listen a lot and you call me after episodes and we talk about them. And you're like one of the only guys I do that with, by the way. And so he's going to
be featured on my group coaching program.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Wayne's awesome. I love Wayne. And so him and I have a few listeners that I bounce ideas off of, and I kind of see what they think about certain things I've said on air. And Wayne is definitely one of those guys. And so he was wondering about cross training. He's like, well, why do you not? I think cross training is great. And I think clearly communicated expectations and clearly defined roles up front, especially, is very important. And having, as you grow, right, as you go from 1 to 2 to 3, and now we have 4 in my office front desk, you need to have these mini specialists that do one thing so that we all know who does what and we're not bickering. And cross training is like the exact opposite of that. In like you have assistants going back and forth and everyone's doing everything. So nobody's doing anything, like being held accountable, and the accountability of it. And he had this issue with his front desk in this episode where it's like not clearly communicated expectations. And that is a very, very strict result of, not having strict roles and responsibilities. And that's like the opposite of cross training. So I thought it was kind of related to that post today. But I felt like that was a solid point right there that was highlighted and something we've talked about before on Practice Underwater.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to add there. I mean, roles are important for accountability. Like, accountability is lost when people are just doing a couple different things. That whole like, oh, she works in the back and also the front.
Yeah.
No. Why? I don't know.
I do not like floaters. I do not like the floaters. I don't like the center fielders. I think you have certain staff that can diverse skill sets, and like taking advantage of those in times of need is great. But running your practice with that in mind, I don't think is a recipe for a large, well-run practice. That's like a very small, to relying on your people. If they move or leave, then you're screwed type practice.
Yeah. And last thing I had with Kevin was his list of 100 things to do. It's just like a really poor way to work on things, like I love the way you say someday maybe list. So you have a reference list, you just leave there, and then you come back to, if you like, got some time and you feel like implementing some new things. But like to operate off a list of 100 things is so overwhelming and not a good way to like get tasks done.
So there are now 6 hosts on the Shared Practices podcast. Shout out to our podfather, Dr. Richard Lowe, for
Podfather.
Podfather. He's the godfather of the Shared Practices podcast.
I didn't sign up on that name.
No, I didn't. So anyway, I'll give him that name. So Richard actually turned us on to this idea of the someday maybe later list from a book he read, and I've actually implemented this in every department of my life. Having a list of whenever I have an idea, now is not the right time. I put it somewhere. It's safe. I can refer back to it, but it's not going to happen. And I think one thing that we do well as coaches, and I think as a company as well, is analytics give you focus and your ability to not get sucked in a million ways to grow your practice. Right? Have you noticed that like we go in these interviews and we're like, oh, add Invisalign, work on your reviews. Like we're not giving them 1,000 things to do. We're giving them like 3 or 4. And that's the true value of you. When you do 3 or 4 things, it's easier than doing 100 things that are not pushing you in the right direction. And you do all 3 or 4 things pushing you in the same direction towards your vision. That's where you get one of my favorite books, Good to Great by Jim Collins. He talks about the flywheel at the end. He's like, these companies that went good to great, they had like everything they were doing was pushing them in the same direction. And they just caught this wind of momentum and they just flew. And that's what you can do. Like, it's not hard. And I think I say that a lot on air, like, this isn't hard. And I'm not trying to be offensive or disrespectful to the people that are having a hard time. But at the end of the day, this is not hard. This is just doing the right things instead of doing everything. Knowing what to do and what not to do are equally as important. And I think 3 or 4 things for everybody. That's what they should be doing. No more.
Beautiful.
That is, I don't know if pet peeve is the right word. That is something I'm passionate about. And I feel like that's one thing that we offer the dental community. Like you go to the Facebook group and you read a post, you're like, insurance verification. You're like, oh, what do I do with insurance verification? Let me read these posts, see what other people do. And now you're like, oh, let me add that to my list. And that's it, that you can get sucked down that path of minimal growth and a lot of effort and getting on the path of informing with analytics and seeing what your practice needs, not every other practice in the universe needs. So,
or you get those like consultants who come in with a binder of all the things you got to implement, all the role definitions, the manuals, and like just like, here you go. It's just overload.
Yeah.
Like you just paralysis by analysis. Like you can't handle all that at once.
And like, I think people ask me sometimes, like, what makes what you guys do different than what everyone else does? Focus. Like we look at a client's practice, we know exactly what they need to do. No ifs, ands, buts, and we do that thing, and we don't do anything else. Like this guy, right? Wheeling and dealing. I don't want to touch it. I know it's not the most textbook way to sell treatment, but hey, it's working. Let's focus on other things that we have to do. And so, that's the personalization that's possible with informed decisions, I think is huge. And the 100 things to do in your practice is the polar opposite of that. And right, every 100 things, they have their time and place. Most of them will at some point get done, but doing them in the right order is going to give you that flywheel, huge momentum effect of, 50 to 60% growth year over year in your practice.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. We'll leave it at that. This was part 2 with Kevin. Great. And then next week, we don't know what's coming up. So we'll see what happens. And I'm really, really excited. Thanks for listening to another episode of Practice Underwater. We'll see you guys next week.
If you're interested in one-on-one coaching with either Dr. George Hariri or Dr. Matt Garino, our contact emails are in the show notes.
And if you're interested in being on Practice Underwater as a guest, where we could look at your practice anonymously, you can go ahead and contact the email in the show notes and follow those directions to get on the show. Thanks, and we'll see you guys next week on Practice Underwater.